A girl holds a doll. 110 years later, archaeologists look closely and are shocked. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss any new videos. The October wind crossed the Nebraska plains with an intensity that seemed to whisper secrets from the past. The gusts lifted golden dust over the ruins of what was once Millbrook, a small town abandoned since the turbulent 1920s, when the Great Depression forced its inhabitants to seek opportunities in larger cities. Dr. Sarah Chen, a young Chinese-American archaeologist from the University of Nebraska, was directing her first major excavation at the site. At barely 30 years old, she had dedicated her career to studying European immigration patterns in the American Midwest. Her gloved hands trembled slightly, not from the autumn cold, but from the excitement of what she might discover in these forgotten lands. "Professor Williams, you need to see this immediately," she shouted toward her mentor, Dr. James Williams, a 60-year-old man who had dedicated 4 decades to historical archaeology. The veteran professor was supervising a group of graduate students near the stone foundations of what old maps identified as the former Hoffman Bakery. The afternoon sun created long, dramatic shadows as Sarah worked meticulously with her most delicate tools. She had detected an anomaly in the east wall of a semi-ruined house, where the bricks seemed to have been placed differently from the rest of the structure. After hours of careful work, her tools touched something that was definitely not natural debris. Inside a carefully sealed cavity, wrapped in multiple layers of wax cloth that had resisted more than a century, Sarah found a sepia photograph in an absolutely exceptional state of preservation. The image showed a girl of approximately 8 years old, with perfectly combed blonde braids and a white lace dress, with intricate details that spoke of a family with certain economic prosperity. The girl in the photograph held a porcelain doll with breathtaking realism. The doll had real blonde hair, blue glass eyes that seemed to look directly at the observer, and wore a tiny navy blue suit with authentic mother-of-pearl buttons. The girl's serious expression contrasted powerfully with the almost ethereal delicacy of the doll, as if she knew she was preserving something more important than a simple family portrait. On the back of the photograph, written in ink that had resisted the passage of time, there was an inscription in Gothic German: Emma Louise Hoffmann, October 15, 1915, Mein liebster Schatz, ein treuer Freund, my dearest treasure, a faithful friend. The calligraphy was careful, almost ceremonial, as if whoever wrote these words understood the historical importance of what they were documenting. "The preservation is absolutely extraordinary," murmured Professor Williams, adjusting his glasses with hands that trembled slightly from excitement. "In 4 decades of excavations, I have never seen organic materials preserved with this perfection. But look carefully, Dr. Chen, there is something more in this cavity." Sarah continued excavating with increasingly delicate instruments, instinctively feeling that this finding was not coincidental. The cavity had been built with surprising engineering for the era. The walls were lined with a mixture of wax and resin that had created an almost hermetic microenvironment. Whoever had created this hiding place had meticulously planned for these objects to survive the passage of time. Her fingers touched something harder and colder. It was the doll from the photograph, incredibly well preserved after more than 100 years, as if it had been placed there just yesterday. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with Nebraska's climate. The next day, Sarah returned to the site with more specialized tools and a complete documentation team. The cavity in the wall was not a simple hiding place. It had been built as a time capsule with multiple individually sealed compartments. The level of sophistication was surprising for an immigrant family from the early 20th century. The porcelain doll that Sarah had found was a masterpiece of German craftsmanship. Its blue glass eyes had an internal mechanism that allowed them to close when tilted back, and its real blonde hair had been styled with curls that remained perfect after more than a century. The navy blue dress was made with the highest quality fabric, with hand-sewn seams that showed an obsessive level of detail. "It's absolutely identical to the one in the photograph," Sarah whispered, comparing both images under a specialized magnifying glass. "But there's something more. Look at these small marks on the base of the doll's neck." Upon closer examination, she noticed small incisions that seemed to have been made with a precision tool, forming what appeared to be a coded pattern. "Professor Williams, I need the portable microscope and high-resolution cameras," Sarah requested, her voice charged with an emotion she tried to keep professional. "These marks are not decorative. They are intentional, precise. Someone carved specific information into this doll." While documenting every microscopic detail, Sarah began to notice other disturbing elements. The doll had a small secret compartment in the back, sealed with wax, containing what appeared to be rolled paper. Additionally, there were small symbols carved at the base of the feet that seemed to correspond to a code or specific notation system. The wind whispered through the ruins with an intensity that seemed to transport voices from the past, as if the stones themselves kept secrets that had remained buried for more than a century. Back at the University of Nebraska laboratory, Sarah worked for days and nights examining the microscopic marks on the doll. The archaeology laboratory, located in the basement of the history building, had become her second home. The fluorescent lights created a clinical atmosphere, while she worked meticulously with precision instruments. Under the high-resolution microscope, the symbols revealed themselves as a complex combination of numbers, letters in Old German, and symbols that seemed to correspond to a specific notation system. 3.2.1915 HF Wahrheit Gerechtigkeit, she finally managed to decipher after consulting multiple Gothic German dictionaries and historical manuscripts. Her colleague, Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a specialist in German-American history and European immigration of the 19th and 20th centuries, approached with an expression of professional curiosity mixed with concern. Michael, a 45-year-old man with Mexican ancestry, had dedicated his career to studying immigration patterns and ethnic communities in the Midwest. "What do these German words mean?" asked Sarah, pointing to the inscriptions she had managed to partially translate. "Wahrheit means truth, and Gerechtigkeit means justice," responded Michael, frowning with an expression that showed these words had deeper implications than they seemed superficially. "But these numbers are more complex than I initially thought," Michael continued. "The 32 definitely cannot be a day of the month, so it must be part of a more elaborate code. The initials HF could be Heinrich Hoffmann, presumably the family's father. But the structure suggests this is more than simple family identification." Sarah moved to the next step of her investigation, consulting the complete historical records of Millbrook in the county archives. What she found left her speechless. The historical records of Lancaster County revealed a story that challenged all of Sarah's initial expectations. The Hoffmann family had arrived in Millbrook from Bavaria, Germany, in the spring of 1912, during a time of intense European immigration to the American plains. Heinrich Hoffmann, the family father, had quickly established a prosperous bakery that became the social center of the small town. Heinrich was described in local records as a middle-aged man, tireless worker, and universally respected in the community. His wife, Martha Hoffmann, was known for her charity work, especially her work with newly arrived immigrant families who needed support to establish themselves in their new American life. Emma Louise was their only daughter, an apparently normal girl who attended the local school and participated in community activities. "But look at this, Dr. Chen," said Michael, pointing to a yellowed newspaper article from the Millbrook Weekly Herald, dated November 15, 1915. This article changed everything she thought she knew about this family. The headline was disturbing: "Hoffmann family mysteriously disappears. Local authorities investigating." The article described how neighbors had noticed that the Hoffmann bakery had not opened for 3 consecutive days, something completely unusual for a family known for their religious dedication to work. When the local sheriff, accompanied by several concerned citizens, had forced entry into the family home, they found it completely empty. There were no signs of struggle. No money was missing from the bakery's cash register, and there was no evidence that they had packed their belongings for a planned trip. The Hoffmann family had simply disappeared without a trace, as if they had evaporated into the cold November air. "The date carved on the doll is November 1st, 1915, Sarah murmured, feeling a chill run down her spine. Just 2 weeks before their disappearance was reported. The mystery fragments were beginning to form a pattern, suggesting the family had known in advance that something terrible was about to happen. Sarah decided to deepen her investigation in the county archives, searching for any document that could reveal more details about the mysterious disappearance of the Hoffmann family. The Lancaster County Archives, located in a Victorian building that had been renovated multiple times, contained decades of dusty records that very few researchers had completely examined. In a filing box marked simply as Unsolved Cases 1915 to 1920, Sarah found a thin folder with documents specifically related to the Hoffmann family. Among these papers was a copy of Heinrich Hoffmann's will, dated October 25, 1915, just 1 week before the family's reported disappearance. The will written in German with English translation, contained extremely unusual clauses for a legal document of that era. Heinrich had left detailed instructions about preserving important family documents for future generations and had made cryptic references to truths that must be protected until it is safe to reveal them. "This is absolutely extraordinary," Sarah murmured, while carefully translating each line. Heinrich Hoffmann was not simply planning his death. He was planning the preservation of specific information he considered vital to family history. The will also explicitly mentioned a hidden safe in the bakery. But according to police records, the 1915 authorities had never managed to locate it. Michael arrived that afternoon with information that further complicated the mystery. "I've been researching in the immigration archives in Washington, D.C., he announced, dropping a thick folder on the work table. "The Hoffmann family's entry documents contain significant inconsistencies I hadn't initially noticed. The immigration stamps were misdated, the signatures didn't match official German records, and there were discrepancies in dates suggesting the documents had been altered or possibly forged. The Hoffmann family didn't come from Bavaria as they had officially declared," Michael continued. "Their true origins remain completely unknown." Determined to completely unravel the mystery, Sarah returned to the excavation site with more advanced technology. She had gained access to ground-penetrating radar equipment that could detect hidden architectural anomalies in ancient structures. The scan results revealed that the wall where she had found the doll contained multiple secret compartments that had not been discovered in her initial investigation. After obtaining all necessary permits and working with extreme care to preserve the site's historical integrity, Sarah began systematically excavating each of the detected anomalies. In the third compartment, her tools touched something that appeared to be leather treated with preservative oils. It was a small diary bound in brown leather, wrapped in multiple layers of waxed cloth that had created an almost perfectly hermetic microenvironment. The initials ELH had been engraved on the cover with precision tools, and the leather had been treated with a mixture of waxes and oils that had preserved the material for more than a century. The diary's pages, yellowed but surprisingly legible, were written in German with the careful and meticulous calligraphy of a girl who had received an excellent formal education. Sarah felt her heart accelerate as she began translating the first entries, realizing she was reading Emma Louise's intimate thoughts. "October 10th, 1915. Papa spoke with me tonight after dinner. His face was very serious, more serious than I had ever seen him. He told me that our family must keep very important secrets, and that if something bad should happen to us, I must remember exactly where we have hidden our most valuable things. I don't completely understand why we cannot tell the truth about who we really are and where we come from." Sarah continued reading, each line revealing more disturbing details about the hidden life of a family that had lived under false identities, constantly fearing that their past would catch up with them in the seemingly safe plains of Nebraska. The diary entries by Emma Louise, written with the brutal honesty of a girl who didn't completely understand the gravity of the family situation, began to reveal the truth that the Hoffmann family had desperately tried to keep secret. As Sarah translated each page, it became evident that Heinrich Hoffmann was not his real name, and that the family had fled Germany under extraordinarily dangerous circumstances. October 15th, 1915. Papa explained more about why we had to leave our real home in Germany. He says he saw something terrible that powerful men did to innocent people in our hometown. When Papa tried to tell the truth about what he had witnessed, these bad men began threatening our family. That's why we had to flee with completely different names and documents that Papa says are not completely true. Sarah wiped away tears as she continued reading, each entry revealing more details about a family that had been victims of circumstances completely beyond their control. October 20th, 1915. Mama cries at night when she thinks I can't hear her. She terribly misses her sister and her parents, whom we had to leave in Germany. Papa says maybe someday we can return, but for now we must remain hidden and act as if we were different people. Michael worked alongside Sarah to verify the historical details mentioned in the diary. His investigations in German archives revealed that the family had originally been called Hofmeister, and that Heinrich Hofmeister had been an accountant for an industrial company who had discovered massive financial irregularities involving government funds destined for orphanages, hospitals, and social services. "Here are the documents that confirm everything," said Michael, showing copies of German records. Heinrich Hofmeister had presented formal evidence to German authorities about a corruption scheme involving very powerful political figures. When the investigation began threatening influential people, Heinrich and his family began receiving specific and detailed death threats. The final entries in Emma Louise's diary revealed the family's final moments in Millbrook, documenting with heartbreaking detail how an 8-year-old girl had understood that her family was about to face mortal danger. The writing became more trembling and urgent as it approached the date of their disappearance. October 28, 1915. The bad men found us even here in America. Papa says they have friends and connections in many places, even in different countries. Yesterday, a strange man came to the bakery and asked questions about Papa that were not normal customer questions. Mama was very scared when Papa told her about this man. They talked in whispers all night. October 30th, 1915. Papa told me we must prepare to leave very soon, maybe tonight. He showed me the special place we built in the wall, where I must hide my diary and my doll Greta if there is no time to take them with us. Papa says that if something terrible happens to us, maybe someday in the future someone will find these things and know that we were good people, that we only wanted to live in peace and be happy. Sarah felt a knot in her throat as she read the diary's final entry. November 1st, 1915. This is probably the last time I can write in my diary. Papa says we must leave tonight after everyone in town is sleeping. Mama packed only the most essential things in a small bag. I am going to hide my diary and my doll Greta in our secret place now. If someone finds these things someday, please remember that we were a family that loved each other very much, and that Papa was a very good man who only wanted to do the right thing. Michael had investigated more deeply in American and German archives, discovering that the men who had pursued the Hofmeister family had connections with criminal organizations that operated internationally. They weren't simply local German criminals, he explained. They were part of a corruption network that had ramifications in multiple countries, including the United States. Even in the remote plains of Nebraska, the family really wasn't safe. 6 months after the initial finding, Sarah had managed to completely reconstruct the story of the Hofmeister-Hoffmann family. With the help of genealogists specialized in European immigration and German historical organizations, she had traced what had happened to the family after their precipitous flight from Millbrook on that cold November night in 1915. Records showed that the family had managed to reach California, where they had lived under a third, completely different identity. Heinrich had worked as a carpenter in Los Angeles, Martha as a seamstress in a textile factory, and Emma Louise had grown up, attended school, and eventually married an Irish immigrant named Thomas Morrison. I found her great-granddaughter, Sarah announced excitedly during an archaeology department meeting. Her name is Rebecca Morrison, and she lives in San Francisco. When I explained our discovery to her over the phone, there was a long silence, and then she began to cry. Apparently, her family had completely lost all trace of their German origins during the following decades. Rebecca Morrison, a 70-year-old woman who worked as a retired librarian, traveled from California to Nebraska to personally visit the site where her great-grandmother had lived the final years of her childhood. She was an elegant woman with blue eyes that surprisingly recalled those of Emma Louise in the centennial photograph, and she carried with her family documents she had inherited without completely understanding their historical significance. I always knew there were deep secrets in our family history, said Rebecca, carefully holding the porcelain doll with hands trembling from emotion. My great-grandmother Emma lived to be 85, but never spoke specifically about her childhood or about her parents. Sometimes, when she thought no one was listening, she made comments about precious things she had had to leave behind and secrets that might someday be safe to tell, but we never understood what these words meant. Sarah organized a special ceremony in Millbrook, where Rebecca and several members of the Morrison-Hofmeister family gathered to honor the memory of Emma Louise and her parents. They had erected a small bronze commemorative plaque that told the family's true story, finally recognizing their courage and sacrifice. After 110 years, said Sarah during the ceremony, Emma Louise Hofmeister was finally able to tell her complete story. She knew, even as an 8-year-old girl, that someday someone would find her doll Greta and her diary, and that person would work to reveal the truth about her family. The porcelain doll, now permanently exhibited in the local historical museum, along with the translated diary and the photograph, seemed to smile gently under the museum lights, as if it knew that its centennial mission had finally been successfully fulfilled.